Hi, my name is Leela Viss, and I am a blogger at 88pianokeys.me, and I'm fascinated and passionate about iPad apps, and I'm excited today to be talking with Alex Andrews, who is the developer of a very unique app called Waay, and that's spelled W-A-A-Y. And I cannot remember exactly how I found out about this app. It may have been something that Alex sent me in an email, but when I took a look at it, it fascinated me, and it was because it was geared towards those who are interested in songwriting. And I have a couple of songwriters in my studio, so I thought, ooh, this sounds interesting. And what I found out about the app is that it's also geared for my piano students as well, especially for students at the intermediate or a little bit older level. I think this is a wonderful app. So I know some of you have asked me specifically, what can I do with some of my older students? I think this app called The Waay, developed by Ten Kettles, may be the answer to that question. So without further ado, I'm going to shift the camera over to Alex, sorry. See, now I'm going to get that messed up. Alex, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. We'd like to know where do you live? Are you a teacher? Why did you develop this app? So please just let us know a little bit about yourself. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Leela. So yeah, my name is Alex Andrews, and I have a small company called Ten Kettles, T-E-N, Kettles. And in terms of where I live, I'm in Toronto, in Canada. And yeah, I've been doing this. I've been building music education apps for a few years now. And where I came to this is in my sort of previous life, I spent half of it as a biomedical slash research engineer, and then the other half as a very active musician. So playing a lot of shows, working with a lot of bands. And what I wanted to do was take those two things and kind of bring them together into this new company to kind of combine my passions. And Waay was one of the apps that came out of that, and I'm really excited to kind of go through that with everyone today.
So you're a working musician by not necessarily by trade, but it sounds like you have a divided life between two professions almost.
Well, right now I'm pretty much all about music education apps, but
Okay.
for about let's see, I'm trying to, for about yeah, about a decade, I was my threshold each week for practice and playing and applied music was 15 hours. So it was all about just putting in a lot of time and building bands and writing songs with people that I could be really passionate about, and just going out and performing. And that's what I did in the evenings. And then in the daytime, I was an engineer and I was doing data processing and a lot of programming. And this was a way to combine those passions.
Well, that's really good to know so that when I give this app to one of my students, I'll tell them, look, this guy knows what he's doing. He's a player. He hangs out in bands, all that kind of, you'll have a coolness factor along with a really cool app. So thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you. So where this specific idea came about is because yeah, I did a lot of teaching, and I mostly taught guitar, but a big part of that was what I called applied theory. Um, what I'd usually do with my new students is on the first time I met them, we'd sit down, I'd try and figure out really what it was they could get excited about with music. Maybe it was they really wanted to um, they wanted to be able to play their favorite songs like perfectly, and that was their focus. And then other students, they wanted to write music, and they weren't as drawn to doing covers. Um, and what I would do is I'd write kind of usually 12 to 16 week kind of custom courses for each student. It took a while, but it was really rewarding.
Yeah.
Um, and it touched on all the fundamentals of, learning guitar and the fundamentals of theory, but I really wanted to tailor it to each individual person. Um, and one of the things I like doing most was tailoring the songwriting kind of courses. So as I got into building music education apps, one of the first things that really occurred to me that I would love to do to take that one-on-one experience I'd have with students and kind of that into an iPad and iPhone app. And that's what Waay is all about.
Nice. Well, step us through what you offer in this app because it's pretty elaborate and comprehensive, is what I've found.
Yeah, there's a lot here. So essentially what it is you get the app from the App Store. It's for iPhone and iPad. And with it, I think it costs $4 US. With that, you get a whole course on melodies. And that takes you from nothing about theory, but hopefully you can play maybe a couple chords on piano or guitar and you know your way around an instrument at kind of a beginner level at least, but you don't need to know anything about theory. And it takes you right from that level and all the way through the first course called Melodies, which I'll show you in just a moment. Takes you through notes and steps, intervals, building scales, songwriting, melodies, all this stuff. Course is short videos. So usually they're just a few minutes. I think some are like 5 minutes. And a bunch of interactive exercises. So the idea is you get practical skills from these exercises, but we actually teach you everything you need to know for the exercises in the preceding video. So that's kind of the core of it. And then you can get another course called Chords, which is all about what chords sound good together, how chords are made up, and how you can use them. And I'm smiling because for me, when I started out songwriting, the point at which it clicked was when I first learned what chords sound good together, like what are the rules for that. And I really try and emphasize that here. So if someone's writing a song and they've got, I don't know, they're singing a melody and they've got like maybe a C chord and a G chord, and they're like, well, what goes with these? That's what this next course is all about.
Which is exciting because that's how I like to teach as well, a chord-based approach. But also, students aren't going to naturally know how to go from one chord to the next, but they'll know when they're looking for something new. And that's what's fun, is unlocking the mystery of chords and chord progressions. So that's exciting that you like chords like I do.
Yeah, definitely. So essentially the app is interactive exercises, these short videos, and then some progress tracking tools so you can see, how many points you're getting a day, how many hours of practice you're putting in a week, that kind of thing. So if you want, I can do a quick demo now.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Perfect.
So when you first open the app, this is what it looks like. On the top left is your profile image. If you want one, you can kind of take a new picture, choose from your library, that kind of thing. That's my name, Alex. And then right here is the full First Melodies course. So there's a lot there. As I said, this is for someone who can play a little bit, but doesn't really have any background in theory. So I really want to make sure that we take you through each thing step by step, so you don't feel like you're hitting some exercise and saying, how do I do this? So that's what this is all about. So I'll show you some of this stuff. Let's start with, so notes and steps. So this is a video we've got here. You can see my little touch there. And you tap it to expand and learn a little bit more about what this lesson's about. And then you can jump in. And I queued this one to start a little bit later, so we can kind of jump to the meat of it. So in this part, there's a narration going along, but I'll just narrate live. We're talking about what these steps are, like whole tones, half steps, that kind of thing. So we look at some examples. Here you can see there's a whole step, C to D, and then there's a few other examples. And this just really lays out for the student practical examples of like how to answer these questions. So then we're gonna leave this video, and then what we can do is then jump right into this next exercise here. And usually in the exercises, I put maybe a little hint, so just to underline, we went through a lot of stuff in the last video. So I just want to remind them that, between B and C and E and F, those are just a half step apart. So usually before exercises, I like to put out a couple little reminders like that. And then once we get started, you just start off with these questions. So what is 0.5 steps above G? What's a half step above G? Well, that's G sharp. So we select the note and the accidental, hit check, and you can see that we got it right. So we can do a few of these. And then if we were to get one wrong, the right answer is highlighted, so we can kind of learn as we go.
Okay.
One other thing is in the top right there, you can see there's a timer. I think I did a lot of beta testing with this app before I launched it, and one important piece of feedback from the users was that, like, right when they first learn it, they really want to take their time to let it all sink in. So what I did with this timer is I made it completely optional. So you can ignore it and you'll see it when it counts down to 0. It's just going to fade away. And you can still finish the exercise, which we can do. So we're just going to finish this exercise and see what happens. And then you can see, okay, your exercise is complete and you got 1 star. And the way the star system works is if you finish the exercise, you pass it and you can move on to the next one. But if you beat the timer, then you can get 2 stars and 3 stars. And then you do more exercises, and it's really about trying to get your theory as fast as possible. But we don't really want to rush people into that. So at first
Nice.
you can go through, just get 1 star at a time, and then later on really try and max them out.
Alex, one of the things that I really appreciate is that bar up at the top that shows you where you are in the drill, because I have students that work on apps here in my studio while I'm teaching. And every once in a while they'll say, Miss Leela, am I just about done with this? And
Right.
so it's nice to know where you are within the drill. So thanks for adding that.
Oh, no problem. Sorry, I closed that screen right as you mentioned that. But yeah, so the way that bar works is filling it once gets you your 1 star, and then if you can beat the timer, then the bar changes color, and then you work really quickly to get through and get your 2 and 3 stars. And there's a reason for that. One of the biggest things for me playing music is being able to access theory really quickly. So if let's say I'm in a band and I'm playing a song and a solo comes up and I know it's in the key of C minor, and I want a certain kind of sound, I need to think, okay, what is the 5th of C? So I can jump in on a solo starting on G. And if I have to count up C to D, all the way up,
Mhm.
I'll miss it. So I really try and teach those sort of fundamental skills so that people can learn it like muscle memory, like you learn your times tables, so that the 5th of C is G, the minor third of C is E flat. So it's just people can just think of what they need and access it right away.
Yep, you got to know your theory. And I'm also noticing that this is definitely friendly for any instrumentalist, not necessarily just a guitar player or a pianist.
For
And
sure.
I think us pianists have it easier because we can see all this theory out on a keyboard. So I do always feel bad for those who don't have that experience. So this looks like it's really helping those who don't play keys as well to understand theory and whole steps and half steps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. That without that fantastic visual reference of the keyboard, you're left with the sort of abstract representation of a fretboard where things change between the second and third string, and it's a little more difficult to grasp, I think, starting out.
So moral of the story is everyone should have some piano lessons. I'll just get my little dig in there right now, or not, or
Yeah, no,
promotion right there.
I think just being able to sort of, yeah, like almost see like a staff, but on its side in white and black is probably one of the most useful things for putting it all together for sure.
Correct. Yep.
Uh, so in terms of just other stuff that's going on here on this interface, so this is all the Melodies course, the first course. And then you can access the second course, Chords, here, and you can see, talk about relative minors, building a chord, all sorts of stuff here. And this magic formula here is the bit, which is my favorite, which talks about chords fitting together. And one thing that I'll mention is throughout these exercises, I just showed the video briefly, but a big thing I emphasize is actual audio examples. So I've written a lot of short snippets of songs to demonstrate different concepts, demonstrate how things sound bad sometimes, of like, here's how chords don't sound good together. And then I'll give an audio example of chords not fitting, and then demonstrate how we can actually get them to fit. So that's another little aspect. Up on the top right, up here, that's our news. So you can check out how you've been doing recently. And then over on the left, you can see your progress. And this, you can see points per day. You can also see minutes per day. Look at last week, last month, all time, and then look at your scores for each of the courses.
Nice. So I do have a question. The magic formula, I don't think I've taken a peek at that yet. Can you explain that just a little bit? That's very intriguing.
So really what it is it's, do you want me to switch back to the camera, or do you want to take a look? Do you want me to keep this up?
Well, that is up to you. Yeah, and we can talk about the magic formula pretty soon if you want to show us a little bit more about the app.
No, I can definitely talk about the magic formula. Basically what it is, the way I introduce the concepts is I want to make sure that from one step to the next, there's never any giant jumps or where we could kind of lose people. So after building up scales and then building up chords independently, the magic formula is bringing those two things together so people can see the logic, like the common sense behind the rules of why certain chords sound good together. So what we do is we basically lay out a key and say what chords actually fit in this key. If we've only have 7 notes in a key and we want 7 chords, how can we build those? So the big idea of the magic formula is bringing up kind of from scratch that concept of your Roman numeral, capital Roman numeral 1, lowercase Roman numeral 2, the one I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the idea behind it. And that's why I take a bit of time to get there, because I really want to help people to understand, not just memorize that wonderful formula of, the 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 diminished thing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Because I'm a big proponent of that as well. I think that's where, yeah, it all comes together is when you can plug in the melody along with the chords. And that's a skill in itself. But you have to know your theory. And what's fascinating to me is this all an Alex theory instruction course, or does it have input from other people, or did you just get input from other students or from students and then you designed it around that?
I think in terms of the content, it came from, I've taken some theory myself. Like I went
Mhm.
to university for engineering, but I did music theory classes as well and took some classical guitar and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I definitely inputted a lot from some great sources, but then really just teaching writing independent courses for each individual student enough times helped demonstrate to me what worked and what didn't work. So a lot of it kind of uh, came from that, and also just from writing a lot of music with bands and working with people who maybe, like I was in school band. I played the bassoon back in high school, and I like band. I like learning music that way. But playing in like rock bands, you meet a lot of musicians who never really felt like that was their thing. Like they love playing music, but going into music classes, they always kind of felt out of place. And I think I played with enough of those people who were incredible musicians, and taught some of those people too, that I tried to kind of refine my approach to make it not too academic-y, if you know what I mean, because
Mhm.
I wanted to connect with those other people as well who didn't really like that approach or who felt that wasn't their thing.
Well, that's excellent because that's what most of us as teachers, I'm a teacher and most of my readers at my blog are teachers, and we're looking for things to help relate to students so that it makes sense and that they want to use theory. I'm all about practical theory,
Right.
using it on the bench, and it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. So
Yep.
brilliant. So how can you step us through, you had courses there, so it looks like it's broken up between chords and scales. And you told us it was, how much was it at iTunes? How much does the initial
It's
package
just
cost?
it's $4 American.
Okay.
And then you get the full Melodies course with that. And that's,
Okay.
a half dozen different videos and another, off the top of my head, yeah, it's like at least like I think 15 or 16 different videos and exercises to really get you to the point where you get the idea of where melodies come from, what notes are, what intervals are, and how to build scales.
Okay. And now that's really interesting that you chose melody first versus chords. Was that a hard decision on your part, which one to offer first?
I think I went with, I mean, most people when they get into music, it's when they hear a song and they're, when they're a little like toddler or whatever, and they start humming along. And it just seemed like a very fundamental thing for people to get melodies, because we just instinctually get melodies. So I wanted to connect with that first, and then chords. Um, I think we get them, but we get what sounds good and we get what doesn't. But the idea of mashing a bunch of notes together and, you know, all their upper harmonics mashed together and it sounds really good, that's a little bit, I think, maybe less instinctive. So I wanted to start and kind of build up to that a little bit.
Oh, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So, okay, they go through the melody course, and now I purchased it on my iPad, and I noticed that my students can make their own accounts on there as well. And so everyone has their own account. So if they want to use the app, though, they would buy it on their iPad and have their own account, and that's where they keep track of their progress, correct?
Yeah, I actually did a big update recently to the downside of the accounts was that every time you needed to use the app, you needed to be connected to the internet.
Okay.
I was getting some feedback that important for people to use the app without any internet connection. Let's say they're on a plane or a subway or something like that, than it was for them to be able to take the same account to move it around. So right now it works offline anywhere. So you basically download it, open it up for the first time, and then you never need an internet connection again. So that's how it works now. And if someone wanted to use it, yeah, you'd get it off the App Store. You can actually get it on your iPad or iPhone.
Okay.
And yeah, that's really all there is to it.
And then it looked like there was all kinds of choices. Are we directed what to do first, or can you just meander through the whole melody course and then be done?
Okay, so one thing I didn't mention, that's a really good question, is in this demo, I unlocked everything so you could just jump around and I could show you a
Okay.
couple things.
Okay.
What I do when you get it is I encourage people to go through kind of linearly, because otherwise you may get to an exercise and not know the material, and the videos are kind of short anyways, so it's not a big deal to kind of move through them. So it's very directed. So you get it, you work through one by one by one by one, and by the end you come out really having some solid skills.
Nice. Okay. So you unlock each one once you accomplish one.
Yeah, and that's just a free thing where you just need to finish the thing before it in order to proceed.
Got it. Yes. All right. Is any ear training included in this?
And that's a different app. That's Hear EQ, but this is all just about theory. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
no
there's
ear
no
training.
ear
It's
training included with this. Okay.
not ear training drills, but incorporated into the video lessons is a lot of audio examples to kind of give people sort of cursory ear training of, you know, what does a diminished chord sound like? What does a major chord sound like? That kind of thing.
Okay. Good. Good to know. And I know you've directed my attention to the other app that you mentioned. Do you want to talk about that a minute?
Sure. I don't have a demo lined up, but I'm happy to give a quick overview.
Okay. Yeah.
The story of this one was playing live music in a big city is awesome. But there's one kind of frustrating thing in that you can practice with your band so hard and, you know, plug your metronome into the PA to get all your parts awesome and, you know, get all your vocal harmonies fully practiced. But then you can get to a venue and the person running the sound, maybe there isn't one, or maybe they're used to a totally different kind of music, or maybe they just don't quite know your sound yet. And an amazingly prepared performance can turn out not very good because the sound's not very good. So what I did with a band, a few years ago now, was we said, okay, we've worked with some great sound people. We just need consistency. So every show, the same sound person who knows, you know, what we want to do for sound. So we took on a sort of a sound person who's a student at a local sound engineering college in Toronto. And I built this tool, this ear training tool for them to help with their learning, to help them identify different frequencies. So they knew, you know, if all the guitars were sounding really mushy together, what they could do on the EQ board. If my voice, I was the singer, was getting really muddy, as it tends to do, they knew kind of how to deal with that. The app just turned out quite well. So it ended up being one of the first products of Ten Kettles, making that public. So what it does is it trains people to hear the aspects of sound that they can really take advantage of. So the most
Right.
simple kind of example, I guess, in terms of piano, is if someone is miking, actually, they probably use this mic here to mic their piano, like if it's a big grand piano. And they were in a big hall, and it was suddenly the sound was getting like really boomy. There's certain things you can do to the EQ, just subtle little things, which can make it not boomy and not dull and maybe a little bit sharper. Um, Conversely, sometimes I don't know if you've ever seen somebody talking to a microphone and it's just so sharp and tinny
Mhm.
and unpleasant. Again, there's little subtle things you can do on the EQ, the little 10-band EQ, to fix that. And it looks so simple and subtle, but it can make a massive difference. So that's really what Hear EQ is all about, teaching.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I think I told you I don't know if I would use that so much in my studio, but it really is good for me to know as a teacher, because I am growing up the next generation of musicians, and they're not all going to be players. They may be the soundboard people or whatever. And it sounds like that's a whole art in itself, is listening for those little intricacies. So
Oh, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for including that too. You're just across the board into this whole music scene. So it's great to see someone who can also put it into a format that we can all learn from. So let's just go through Waay one more time, just so people understand. The first time you purchase it, you get the Melodies course.
Yes.
And then there's an in-app option to purchase the Chord course. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then how much is that in-app purchase for the Chord?
It's just $5 right now.
It
Yeah.
is. Okay. All right. Well,
Another, like,
considering what you're all getting in that package, that's a pretty generous price. So not generous, generous on your part. You could be charging a lot more for all the work that you put into it. So that's wonderful. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk everybody through the app. A big thing for me, I guess, is like I love user feedback, because some people will email me and tell me what they really like, and then also if they would love to see some extra feature, for example, like the offline mode, which we just added. That's really useful for me to know. So just to any prospective users, don't ever be afraid to get in touch. I'd love to hear from you.
I do have one last question. I noticed that you had songwriting within within the course, and I was wondering, does any of that include any lyric writing? Because that's a whole nother art.
Oh, it definitely is. No, I stick mostly to melodies and chords. That would be a whole nother course and a half, which I don't think I would be the person to teach it.
Well, maybe that could be your next app, because
Maybe.
that's helping a fellow student work on lyrics. That is not easy.
Oh, for sure.
It's the music in my mind is a little bit more fun than the lyrics, but they're very important, obviously.
Oh,
So
definitely.
thank you so much for walking us through Waay. And I hope this will turn people your way. And I think they will find the app very beneficial. And I wanted to put one little more plug in, and that was, I have a student who she's my beta tester for a lot of apps, and your app passed her test with flying colors. She really liked it.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
that's important to me, because she's picky. So I value her opinion. So you passed the Josie test. So congratulations.
Okay, thank you, Josie. Thank you, Leah.
All right. Well, I think we will sign off then. Thanks so much for joining me today, Alex. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.